There is a famous expression, mess around and you'll find out. Unfortunately for Ivan Toney, he's found out the hard way. 8 months, 8 months. We won't be seeing kick a ball for 8 months. This is One Kick from Glory, and we're going to be talking about a lot of things happening in the world of football today, but more Premier League focused. I'm joined by Craig
Peace.
and Marcus.
Hey,
And we're going to start right at the top with that breaking news story that Ivan Toney's ban has finally come through. We've been waiting actually for the FA to kind of come to a decision as to how long the punishment would be. I want to start with you, Mark. What's your general thoughts on the ban itself, the length, and what implications that might have for him going forward?
yeah, look, it's been looming. I don't think you can really complain. It's not like he just went down and put on one cheeky bet at the bookies, is it? He's been caught on multiple cases. I don't think he's got much to complain about. I actually think it's probably not the worst thing timing wise. Brentford are pretty much not playing for anything. Season's basically over, and he's gonna get the first month and a half of his ban. Be pre-season and the start of the season. He's gonna have to keep himself fit in training, and it'll be like a new signing for Brentford next January. So, yeah, it's not ideal. Obviously, Brentford's talisman, third top Premier League goal scorer this season. He's on very good form, and the type of player that can keep you in the Premier League on his own. But Brentford are going to have to probably get some reinforcements in, even if it's just an extra number up there until Tony's back second half of the season. But yeah, I don't think you can really have too much to complain about.
Yes, it's a bit of a not like you say. It's not a shocking news. I guess the surprise is the timing. Like, I mean, for me, I think it's just a bit coincidental that now he's not going to be fit and available to play. I mean, he's currently injured, so he might not have been fit anyway. But there was talk that he may have been available to play the game this weekend. But now he's definitely not going to be able to play in the big game they've got coming up against Man City in a couple of games' time. For you, Craig, what's been your general thoughts on this breaking news of Ivan Toney's ban?
I think why did it take so long for them to do it? And obviously, 8 month ban is a long ban. If you really think about it, it's a long ban, but it could have got worse.
That's true.
Could have got worse. So, but the thing is, like, how Brentford going to cope without him next season? I've got an idea. They can buy Nketiah of Arsenal. They can buy him off us. You can take Nketiah off us. I don't mind.
Well, I think it's interesting that you said that, because I was trying to get a sense of the general sentiment online about how people feel about this news, and some people are kind of in the camp that you have, Mark, where it's like it's actually not a bad thing when you think about it. He's got, it's not a long ban. He misses the summer, so he's got an extended rest. Then it's 3 months of the season in between that, and then he'll be back in time for January. So realistically, if you're an ambitious club, you might, depending on where you're placed in the league at that point in time, you might want to take a cheeky bet on him. Sorry, no pun intended there. Take a punt on him. Also, still betting. Anyway, no pun intended. That was just it's a great expression. It's unfortunate in the circumstances. But for you, Mark, I guess taking into account what Craig said about them looking at obviously they could potentially have Nketiah if they wanted him. What do you think Brentford would do now? And also tied to that, could you see a big club going in for Toney, all things considered?
Probably not at the moment, no. Based on his form, he would have been well in for a potential big move. But I think with everything, the ban's been looming, like Craig said, for a little while. We knew it was coming, so no one was going to take a punt, knowing that could, you know, materialize. Now it's materialized. He's out till January. There'll be question marks around his fitness when he comes back, regardless of how fit he stays, because he won't be playing games. So he's definitely not going to be match fit. So I don't imagine he'll be on the radar of any top club looking to push anywhere come second half of the season, for registration issues, Champions League, Europa League, etc. And, then on top of that, his fitness is always going to be a question mark, and is he going to hit the ground running? So I think there'll be other places to go. As for Brentford, Brentford, I think, could probably still get by, without needing to necessarily fully replace him, in the sense of, they need these goals, but if they could get, one of a midfielder and a striker that can combine his goals. They still have Wissa, they still have Mbueno. So there's still players there that can put the ball in the net for Brentford. Obviously, it's a big amount of goals, and I wouldn't expect them to be ninth next season without him come January. But like I said, it'll for Brentford at the very least, it'll be like a new signing for the second half of the season.
Yeah, it represents an interesting opportunity, and hopefully for them, I mean, knowing Brentford, they would have a plan in place. They would have a target that they want. I mean, they brought in Kevin Schade, and he's been getting more and more minutes as the season's gone on. He looks like it's a bright young talent from Germany, so maybe he might be primed to kind of get more minutes next season. You never know. I mean, I think there's also the option they could send him abroad, because the ban, it's a Premier League ban, it's not a FIFA ban, so you could play in any other country. So potentially they could look at doing something really clever there, either selling him overseas or do like a kind of like a little. I mean, I'm proposing this, Brentford. We can help each other out here. So sell him to Arsenal. You can have both Balogun and Nketiah on loan till January. Then we'll review the terms and see if you want to make that permanent, and then we'll take it from there. Really. And as for Arsenal, we'll sign him and loan him out for 6 months. He comes back in January. So I feel like for all parties concerned, although, wait, we'd be short a striker. Okay. You get to choose one of Balogun and Nketiah, and we'll get Toney. We'll loan Toney out to Germany, to Leverkusen, link up with Xhaka if he moves there. And then, then happy days. And he comes back in January, fresh, fit, raring to go, having played football. It's not a FIFA ban, it's only an FA ban, and everyone wins really, except for Brentford.
Before you say that, when Kieran Trippier had a ban for betting as well, he was banned from Atletico. He couldn't play a couple of games for Atletico as well. So it's a whole worldwide ban. So you can't do that. Because Kieran Trippier got banned a couple of seasons ago when it was Atletico Madrid for when he was betting at Tottenham or one of the bet.
What's to do with his transfer to Atletico Madrid?
Yeah, and then he couldn't play for a couple of games. So it can't work like that. The FA will put a worldwide ban on him, so he can't play abroad.
All right, fair enough.
That doesn't work.
I guess the other question is, if he's banned from all football activities, can he even be transferred out? Because that's the other question. Is she stuck till January?
I think he's stuck till January. I don't think Brentford can make any profit on him right now, so they'll have to keep.
I mean, it's a shame. I mean, he 262 breaches, of which 232 are the ones that because 30 got thrown out. So those are the ones that he actually got charged for. It's a lot. I mean, clearly this is a player who had or has gambling issues and probably needs help and support now to get over it, rather than just being a bad person. I mean, the irony of it, and this is something I want to throw back to you, Mark, is that when you think about the Premier League in general as a league, as a sport, as a brand, the amount of clubs that we have and the amount of betting sponsors that we have in the league itself is problematic. Now, if you're going to extend, and he has broken the rules, so if you are going to punish Toney with this extent, that's fine. But surely now there needs to be a genuine conversation around the sponsorships in the Premier League, because you can't ban a player for breaching betting regulations and yet have multiple clubs sponsored by betting things, having broadcasters with their own betting platforms, advertising it before, during and after every game. To me, it stinks of hypocrisy.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a conversation to be had. I know some people will feel strongly about it. I don't feel as strongly about it. I think from Ivan Toney's perspective, he knows the rules. As a football player, you're not allowed to engage in betting, and he is engaged in betting. Like, there are no rules around sponsorships and who you can and can't be sponsored by, at least at this stage. So not a rule has not necessarily been broken in that regard. So I wouldn't necessarily call it hypocrisy as much as I think there is valid room for conversation around the nature of who we allow to sponsor us and what that represents, right? Like, it is a representation of support for a particular reality. There's no doubt about that if you're allowed to do that. But I don't think it translates across to justifying a player illegally betting. As far as that's concerned, he's done what he's done. What he's done is wrong. He's been punished for it, right? I don't think he can really complain. But yes, I still think, generally in football, wide. These are good conversations to have for the game. It's important to consider what the sport wants to represent and doesn't want to represent, and that goes across the board, including who we allow to take over football clubs. So, if we're gonna have that conversation, maybe we should have done it a couple of months before Newcastle got took over, and maybe we should also be doing it regarding some of these Man United bids as well. So, I think there's lots of ethical questions to be discussed. If you're going to dive into that, and football says it wants to be ethical, then these are the big topics that they'll have to deal with.
I agree, and FA, the Premier League, just in case you guys are unaware, we're still waiting on your verdict on Man City. No pressure, no rush, but any time between now and next week would be great. Just no pressure, no rush, but just any time now would be much greatly appreciated by all of us connected to the One Kick from Glory family. We would all just create a decision very soon. No pressure. I mean, tomorrow will be fine. I mean, midnight tonight will be even better, but I could take next week's Friday. That's fine. No rush. Just remember, time is ticking. We've all got stuff that we want that they have. My last thing on this Ivan Toney stuff, Craig, how do you think he's going to come back from the situation? Do you think he's going to be the same player, or do you feel like he might, having this timeout might cost him vital kind of time in his career?
He'll definitely miss out on England caps. I don't know if we get how his ranking in the England squad will be after that. I don't know if they'll pick him again. I'm not sure, but I think he'll miss out on getting more caps and trying to eventually replace Harry Kane. So, but I feel that it could affect him. But I think he's a strong-minded player anyway. So maybe the time we'll make him reflect, come back even stronger, come back an even better player. So yeah.
Talking about come back even stronger, coming back even better. Let's talk about Arsenal. Very disappointing game against Brighton at the weekend. I was driving from Birmingham, so I didn't really get to watch the game. I had it on in the background, audio only, I promise. And I switched it off after it went to 2-0. I was like, this is good enough for me. I don't need to know anymore. But just disappointing, really, the performance. I want to start with you, Craig. In terms of the game, because we want to talk about the overall picture for Arsenal this season, but in terms of the game itself, do you think Brighton are becoming our new Southampton, that bogey team that just has a way of getting points off us now? Because it's not the first time in the last few seasons that they've done this to us.
It's 3 times they come to the Emirates and 3 times they've won since they've been in the Premier League. There's no coincidence in that. They just know how to play against us. They have our number. As Matthew would say, they have our number now. And I think that in that game, we didn't come into the game. I know City played before us, so I'm worried that maybe the players watched the City game before we played, or saw the highlight, or they must have knew that City had won.
Yeah.
And they must have gone into the game nervous, thinking, I'm not going to win this game. So I thought it was down to the managers to kind of say to the players, you know what, forget about City, let's focus on our game. There was no aggression, there was nothing in the game. It was just an easy game. It was a walk in the park for them. I think that they stopped us playing. Brighton stopped us playing our game. They pressed us well. They made good tackles. They did the dirty foul or the cheeky foul. They did everything they need to do to stop us from playing. And we didn't have the mindset of trying something different, mixing it up, swap Saka on one wing, swap Martinelli on one wing, or Trossard. We didn't try anything different. We just kept the same way we play all season. And and Ben White, I'm sorry, mate. He turned that guy. He destroyed you. Absolutely destroyed him. Turned him inside out. Left, right, inside out. Gone, goal. So, and our defender, I don't know, man. Watching that at home, it was just embarrassing to watch.
Yeah, I was like I said, I was listening to the game on the way home, and it was just interesting kind of. I haven't watched it back, and I refuse to watch it back. I don't need to know anymore. I think I've learned enough from hearing it live, I should say. But what I found really troubling for me is the like you said, the lack of aggression, the lack of. Because we've done really well this season to turn games around. We all know the famous Bournemouth last minute Reece Nelson winner, but I think at the same time, by that very same token, our games have been far too fractured and frenetic. Too much emotion involved. Too much. There's not been enough control. For you, Mark, just on that notion of control, do you think that's like a big area that Arteta needs to address for next season? Because as we know, and I'll come on to this a bit later in terms of like Klopp's journey in Liverpool, there comes a point as a coach when you kind of have to like evaluate things and really kind of identify what are the big barriers to your success, and also who are the players who you just have to leave behind and move on from. And we're going to touch on that in a bit as well. But do you feel like that whole notion of control is something that, in as well as Arsenal have done this season, especially in this game, it fell apart?
Yeah, look, I think I'll start by saying, fair play to Brighton, because, they've had a great season, and, they have quietly built a really good team. And to the point where 2 or 3 of their best players are linked away this summer for big, big money. And you look at what they've got going on behind that 1 or 2 or 3 players, and you think, would they be even hurt that much? I don't know, probably not that much. Plus, they'll get 150 million for 2 of them players, right? Like, you kind of look and think they've done a really, really shrewd job with their signings. Matoma from Belgium third division, McAllister, now a World Cup winner, and Caicedo, cheap from, South America. Evan Ferguson coming through the academy. I can't pronounce his name. The left back there, the Colombian left back. We'll just stick with that. Solly March, Pascal Grobe. They built a really good little setup there. Enciso coming through, scored a couple in this last few weeks. You think he looks good. So credit to Brighton for what they've built and the way that they are aggressive and attacking. From an Arsenal perspective, I think it is disappointing to get so comfortably dismantled at home in a game that you have to win. But yeah, I think it does point to some of the glaring problems, but then problems are not, they're not problems like, this is a terrifying, worrying problem. They're problems like, when we're trying to win a title, we're not ready to do so problems, right? Like, and I don't think anyone at Arsenal at the beginning of the season would have considered them genuine title contenders. So the fact that Arsenal have been genuine title contenders for the entire season is impressive. But yeah, they need more control in midfield, and Odegaard's a great player, but he doesn't dictate the midfield from a at least kind of midfield perspective. Like, he can get the ball going forward and he hits some nice goals, but even his assists are minimal across an entire season. Like 7 or 8 is not special. It's okay, like, but it's his goal contribution that's been terrific. But yeah, they need someone who can control the midfield. Declan Rice, Caicedo, that type of player. Would be kind of like the role model player for that. And then a couple more players that are able to offer kind of Trossard type players that they can come in and do something, make a difference, so that your bench is not necessarily the likes of Reece Nelson and Nketiah, but an upgrade on that. Like Trossard has been a significant upgrade on your bench this season, coming in second half of the season, covering Martinelli in that regard. You get him in, he gets 4 assists in one game, right? Like you want then players that are going to be able to consistently tick. But the big thing, and I think fundamentally the big thing that has made the difference and would have made the difference this season, is an actual striker. And all the talk around, Gabriel Jesus coming in and being the big man up front who's going to score all the goals and push Arsenal, on, and he's got 9 goals, right? Granted, he was out for a chunk of the season. He'd probably have a few more than that if he wasn't. But facts are facts. Gabriel Jesus is not a title-winning striker. That's why Man City got rid of him, right? Like, he's a good Champions League squad player, and I'd be okay with him as my second striker to Haaland, to someone else, or as a partner with another striker who is slightly better than him, because he's just not good enough on his own to lead any team to that type of level. And that's clear. I think it was clear at Man City. I think it's clear at Arsenal, in a team in which Arsenal have had a very, very good season and levels and levels above where we expect them to be. And I just don't think he's cut it. So yeah, I think that is something I'd be thinking on in the summer too. Controlling midfielder, a striker that can actually score 20 goals in a season, and then one or two additions to strengthen the rest of the squad out, and you're set to go again.
That's interesting on Jesus. I want to throw a weird comparison to you, Mark, and I want to come back to you, Craig, about something else. But because you only mentioned Jesus there, and you're right about his numbers. They're not what you would. Definitely not for. I mean, again, Arsenal have, in terms of like what we've done this season, we've sort of leapfrogged the process, because people would have said we would have been a lot further back than where we are. So the fact that we are in contention, or we have been in contention for the league for a long time, and we've kind of fallen away at the vital point. But I look at him and I look at Olivier Giroud when he was at Arsenal, and I feel like both of those players, for different reasons, have defined the squads that they were part of. Giroud, for unfortunately being a bit of a failure in terms of the fact that we know that the 15-16 season or 16-17 season when he just stopped scoring. I think it's a 10 or 14 game run. He just stopped scoring goals, and Ozil could have had the assist record that year, but Giroud just stopped scoring. He's not the only one, but he's the main one I'm going to point out because I'm talking about him. And he's gone on to do better things since leaving, which seems to be a trend for a lot of players from that era. But I'm not taking it personally against any of you guys. Cesc, Alexis. I'm not taking it personal, but I remember Adebayor, Nasri, Van Persie. Frauds. So there's that. But then I also think when you look at Jesus in terms of what this new Arsenal, he feels like the way how, when Arteta first took over and we kind of were struggling to find identity in the strikers, you had Aubameyang, who should have scored more goals, but then kind of stopped scoring because he got his new money, and Lacazette, who forgot how to score, and now I think he's still top goal scorer in France, which is ridiculous. Shame. Have some shame. But I look at him and Giroud and Jesus, and I feel like they both define the turning points in Arsenal. Giroud is almost like the definition of the Banter era, because like this guy just he had good moments, but he just was never consistent. And Jesus is like, he looks the part, but just isn't bagging the goals. Do you feel like between the two of them, actually, here's a question for you: who would you say is a better striker and would work better in the current system? So if you were to put Giroud in this current system now, or Jesus in Giroud's system back then, who would be the better striker?
I think they're both kind of, you can go either way, right? And then one of them's much better than the other. Giroud was good at what he did, which was scoring against Liverpool. Jesus is good at what he does, scoring against Liverpool, right? Like, they both can do that, all right? Like, but outside of the 2 games a year where they look like Messi, there's a lot lacking in their performance and in their game, and the facts are they're just not good enough strikers for the top level team. Like that's the facts. So I think for me, I hate to be so ruthless with it, but if Arsenal want to be in the mix again next year, when the likes of Man City are still going to be miles ahead, you would assume potentially Liverpool will be back. Newcastle will be in the mix. Man United, there or thereabouts. Chelsea, they'll spend 400 million and still finish 11th. Like, but the reality is, like, there's going to be so many teams in that mix, right? Like, you need someone without question who's going to bang in 20 goals minimum, right? You click your fingers and Haaland's got that in 5 minutes at Man City, right? You always know that when Salah's having a bad season, he'll still get 20 goals, right? Like, so you've got that, like, and then not only do you have that, you've got the developments of Gapco, you've got Nunez, who's going to be going into his second season, and you've got Diaz. I would look at Nunez as sort of like a comparable season with Jesus in a team where Arsenal are looking at the title and Liverpool have been outside the top 4 the entire season. I think currently Nunez has 1 goal less than him, 3 games left to go. We'll see how that ends. But like, he's also in the mix of Liverpool's attackers, needs to contribute to be the 4th top goal scorer, 3rd top goal scorer. When you've got Gapco, you've got Diaz, you've got Nunez, them 3 between them will contribute to at least 20 goals, 25 goals, when you've got Salah, who's going to get you 20 goals for sure. So Arsenal need that. Whoever that is, whoever that's going to be, if they're going to come and they're going to say next summer, look, Jesus is going to be our man that's going to do that, then I think that's a big gamble going into this next season with placing all your reliance on Gabriel Jesus being the man that's going to do that. I think Arsenal can go two ways. They can bring back the likes of Balogun and get him to put pressure on Jesus, but would it be enough pressure? I don't think so. So therefore, I think they have to go out and they have to look in the market at a top class striker and spend the money that's needed to bring them in.
On that note, who would you put as the best option for Arsenal to go for?
Victor Osimhen, possibly. Dusan Vlahovic, I know he's been talked of and he's been kind of flirted with for a couple of years. I think he's a good player. I think he's strong, physical. I think he fits the bill and would do quite well in the Premier League. Lautaro Martinez, out there, top striker who will score goals and has contributed to getting to the Champions League final. But these are not players that are coming at a small price tag. Like Victor Osimhen, Napoli paid 80 million for him, and he's gone up in stock since they signed him. Dusan Vlahovic went to Juventus for 60 million a couple of years ago. Like Lautaro Martinez has been talked about in the 60s, 70 million price tag for a handful of years now. You're not getting one of these strikers cheap. You have to go out and you have to spend the money. But there's a couple.
Greg, who would you bring in as your upgrade option on Gabriel Jesus?
Has to be Osimhen or Vlahovic or even Martinez.
You're a big fan of Martinez. That's your guy, isn't it?
I like him. Good player. Quality player.
Speaking of Lautaro Martinez, Inter are in the Champions League final, and Champions League nights are finally back at the carpet. I've not seen Arsenal in the Champions League live since Barcelona 2017 when I went to... Is it 2017? No, 2016 when I went to the new camp. Great times. Sat where I shouldn't have sat, but hey, it is what it is. Surrounded by a Milan fan and Americans, but hey, and some Spanish people. It was great. Good times. So, and then he scored a wonder goal, which seems to be endemic of his Arsenal career. Just does one good thing every 4 years and then disappears again. So, and then I saw Messi do what he does best, which is like basically just playing in second gear until he realised Arsenal were actually looking a bit dangerous, and he just turned it on to... He went to third gear, never went out of third gear, and then that was enough for them. Terrible performance. So we can't have a repeat of that, but we're back in the big time. Are you excited, Craig, for Champions League being back at the Emirates? So what do you think it's going to mean for us next year?
I'm excited, but at the same time fearful as well. I'm fear that we'll
can't have fear, man.
We'll coast through the group stages, and if we get to the knockout round, Arteta will do a madness and pick a random player that he hasn't played for a while, and then we end up losing to a rubbish team. That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah,
he needs to work on that.
Nah.
He needs to work on big games.
Nah. You'll be fine.
So?
It'll be Bayern Munich that'll do you in the last 16 like they always do.
Yeah,
it'll be a big team. I would assume.
If we get Bayern Munich again and they do it, and it's starting to look that way, I might have to call in the West Ham boys for a favour. That's what I'm saying. I will not explain what that means, but you know what it means. If you know, you know. That's all I'm going to say. Champions League final 2019. Anyway. Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. Obviously, I think that's a big thing to look forward to. It's going to help us with players that we're going to try and attract. Obviously, there's massive talk going on about... there's been talk for the last 5-6 months about Declan Rice coming to Arsenal. Rumours of a bid coming up very soon.
I've heard that they've already agreed terms and all that. Everything's been agreed. That's what I heard. I don't know how true it is. Online it says he's agreed terms, but...
It might be true.
It's just really personal terms to agree the fee with West Ham.
That's the thing. I mean, West Ham now have an opportunity to make a market out of this because Man City, Pep Guardiola has been doing his usual talking and flirting in the press about how he likes Declan Rice. I'm sorry, boss. I mean, not my boss, but Pep. Yeah, they call you the bold fraud. You're not a fraud. You're Pep. You have Calvin Phillips. He's like Declan Rice. He's also English. Just play him a bit more. Maybe you might see that quality in him. You know, you've got your own Rice at home. Leave the West Ham captain because he's not ours yet. I hope he becomes ours. But until then, leave him alone, right? You've got your own Rice at home. Use him more. And you got Lavia. Go get him. And if you don't want Lavia, we'll take him. Just don't bid if we bid for him. Because you lot are cheeky like that. Terrible. But obviously we've got a couple games left. You know, this hasn't quite worked out the way we were all expecting the Brighton game. We thought we were going to pull it down to 1 point and then hopefully win the next game and then put a little bit of pressure on Man City, which is not really pressure. It's more just like, oh, Arsenal ahead of us again. Okay, they're keeping it warm for us. Fair enough. To end the season, what are you hoping for from Arsenal? We've got 2 games left.
Not in the first on Wolves.
That's it. Last 2 games. Forest coming up, I think,
Saturday 5 p.m.
And then Wolves will be the final one. What are you hoping for from the team to end out the season?
2 wins. Confidence boost for next season. A statement for next season. If we have a statement for next season, we start off well. Now win our 2 games. Then next season we start off with how we started this season. But this time, try and win the league. This time, don't fall off in May. Don't fall off. Just try and be consistent for the whole season. As Marcus said, get an elite striker in. Get some good players in. Get rid of some of the deadwood. We've got a lot of deadwood in the club still that needs to go. Sorry, Rob Holding, but yeah, we've got some deadwood that need to go. Rebuild, compete for compete in much competition as possible. Try and see us far, if we can go far in the Champions League. Try and see if you can do well in the FA Cup with maybe a reserve team at least, not with the strongest team. Let's try and win a trophy next season.
I think ultimately Arteta needs to have more than 13 players that he trusts. You know, you can't be relying. I mean, like Saka has not run past a player since the Liverpool game.
He's tired. I've been saying it all week. He's been tired.
I don't know if it's tiredness. I mean, we can tell Thomas Partey is falling off a cliff, and he's definitely not. I wouldn't say he's injured, but doesn't have it in his legs anymore. That power is gone. Like he's knackered. He needs to be rested for the rest of the season. But with Saka, I don't know if it's a case that he's changing how he plays because he doesn't want to get any more kicks because he's been kicked a lot this season, or if he's at a point, like you said, where he just generally hasn't got that power in his legs anymore because he's really tired. But you know, we'll have to cross that bridge and we'll see as it goes on. I guess one last thing for you, Mark. What would you say now for Arsenal? Last 2 games going into the summer to set things up for next season. What's going to be very crucial for Arsenal to do?
Yeah, just don't let the season end on a pittering out note with a 3-0 defeat to Brighton and then 2 poor results, right? Like, 5 games left to go. Arsenal were in a title race. That's an impressive thing to think about, considering where you were at the beginning of the season. And at the end of the day, you're back in the Champions League. You've always had the promise of London for attracting players, and now it's just doing your business right. Making sure this is another thing I worry about with what I've seen from an Arsenal perspective, this whole Mudryk nonsense that dragged on and dragged on and dragged on and dragged on and flirted with him on Instagram. And, Mudryk basically, told the world he wanted to move to Arsenal and then couldn't get the deal across the line because you're fighting over pennies. And Chelsea are like, do you know what? Forget the pennies. Here's, exactly what you want. And then you're like, oh yeah, it's all right. We'll pay it too. Sorry, too late, right? Like, just don't do any of that in the summer. Decide who your targets are and go and get them. Because especially if you're going for players that are going to be well targeted, like Declan Rice, if you're in pole position, that's a deal that's going to need to get done, sealed, dealt with across the line, and hassle over before the rest of the big teams come in and start this bidding war thing. It's like, we want the player. What do we need to pay? We'll pay you what we need to pay. Just get the deal done. And I think Arsenal are going to have to do that this summer. They're going to have to be more ruthless in the way they handle the transfer market.
Yeah, that's definitely going to have to happen because we can't have a repeat of what happened last summer. It's just not acceptable. Mathematically, it's not over, but I think we can all safely assume that Man City are not going to have a collapse of the most epicest proportions and lose 4 games in a row. I'm including the Champions League in that, but it's not. Stranger things have happened. If it does happen, though, comment on the video, and I'll send you £10. First comment, that's £10 on me. Illness. If Man City collapse and lose 4 games in the trot and Arsenal in the league, I'll pay someone £10. I would go higher, but as you can see, my faith is measured.
Yeah, I guess even I'm not commenting on the video.
Fair enough. Gabriel Jesus had to end the season.
And I'll give them £50.
There you go. Gabby J's had for end to end the season, so I can at least win one thing this year. But moving on to that one thing, Liverpool. You have been on a great run. Really impressed. Craig did call it. Did say if you can get in gear and get your things together, it might be really exciting. So you've done 7 in a row now, and you're looking really well primed for Champions League football after Manchester United are having their little shakes. They think they're really happy that Man City are going to win the league title. A good number of those fans. And I have to say to you, are you guys that stupid? Do you not realize what that means? You may have more overall total titles than them, but give it, if they get Champions League this year and they get another one next year, who will care about you guys? Just your own fans. Just think about that, because I won't. But it's been exciting. Liverpool on a roll. Craig, are you happy that you got that prediction right?
Yeah, I'm happy.
So far,
I'm happy I got that prediction right, because I always thought that Liverpool, they went for a bad spell, and Liverpool always seem to finish strong on the clock. On the clock, they always, if they have a bad season, I think the second season the season when Alisson scored that header to get to qualify for Champions when they finished fourth, that's the season Liverpool having this season. They struggled and they came back and they got into top 4. I think they'll definitely. I put my hands on it. I think they could get top 4. But it depends on Man United. If Man United slip up or if Newcastle slip up, then Liverpool there to jump in and take the top 4.
Well, Man United and Newcastle both have played 35 games, both on 66 points. Liverpool behind them both played 36 games on 65 points. So it's very, very close. I mean, it's not inconceivable that you finished third, which, looking a month or so ago, that sounded like an absurd joke, but it's not inconceivable. How happy are you, Mark, with the turnaround in form and as you know, and of course the resurgence of the new young wonderkind, Mr. Curtis Iniesta Jones?
What a time to be alive. Curtis Jones, Premier League material. Who'd have thought it? Like the new Steven Gerrard.
Steady, let's not go that far.
Oh man, yeah. You see, we're shipping out Ox and we're shipping out Navigator and we're shipping out James Milner. All news announced today, all leaving. And that leaves space for our newfound midfield gem, Curtis Jones. Future's bright for Liverpool. It's going to be Curtis Jones in midfield on his own next year, I think. That's the plan. These owners don't want to spend any money. They're like, we got Trent, we got Curtis Jones. Our midfield's perfect. I think it's been great. We're delighted to be where we are. It might just be a little late in the race, but I think Newcastle may feel the pressure. They've still got to play Leicester, who need to stay up. They play Brighton tomorrow night, who we all know are enjoying spoiling the party at the moment. So hopefully they continue that party spoiling with a win at Newcastle. Then it's all to play for them. They go to Chelsea last game of the season to Newcastle, so they'll feel the pressure. United obviously still have Chelsea to play as well, Bournemouth as well. I think there's really the potential there for them teams to drop enough points and for us to get across the line. We have Villa at the weekend at home. We've only lost one game at home all season. We really should win that. And then we have already relegated Southampton on the last game of the season. So that would be a catastrophe if we don't win there. So, I think we're going to end the season unbeaten in 11 with 9 wins in a row. And let's see where that takes us. Hopefully into the top 4. And, like that season Craig referred to, we ended up finishing 3rd that season because Leicester screwed up and we jumped above them on the final day of the season as well. So, I would love a repeat of that, but of course, I'd be delighted to finish top 4 if that's possible.
The other thing which is interesting is that Brighton have 4 games left as well. Now, if they could do a 4-for-4 and get 12 points, they will potentially be in the mix, depending on how the other fixtures go. But they could get top 4 as well. Wouldn't it be nice if Brighton and Liverpool make top 4, banish Newcastle? Elbow FC. And United, the fraud United. Wouldn't that just be great? Wouldn't that be just actually? You know what? I think that would be the cherry on the cake for the Premier League season. You know, laugh at Arsenal. All right, we flew too close to the sun and we got burnt. We'll learn from it. What have you guys got to show for this year? Carabao Cup. No one cares about it. No one cares. Even Carabao don't care about the fact you won it. Like, you know, Sir Alex Ferguson doesn't care. But you guys are happy. You won a trophy. Well done. FA Cup, that's different. We'll talk. But Carabao, League Cup, no one cares. The League Cup, I've always viewed it as Man City's pre-season trophy. It's the trophy they win before the big stuff happens, right? But hey, well done, Man United. You've done really well. You should be proud of yourselves. Do you think if Newcastle, of the two, which one do you think, Craig, is most likely to drop out of the top four?
Man United. They're playing well. They're not consistent enough. They'll lose against a Brighton and they'll win the next game. Then they'll lose another game. Then they'll win another game. They're not consistent enough.
That's a fair point. Well, either way, I mean, it would just be joyous. It's not joyous is probably not the right word. I will be eating popcorn and celebrating whichever one of you drops out of it. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, there's a lot of drama at the bottom of the table. We know that Southampton are finally confirmed to be down after their just abject, crappy performances in the last few games. I have to say this, Southampton, you will not be missed by me. Goodbye, good riddance. I remember going to games at the Emirates and you lot spoil the parade. I don't care. Bye. Bye. And then next year, Brighton, you can join them. Get out. Sick of these clubs coming in here and just affecting our team with their they just somehow turn up. Like Fraser Forster would become the best goalkeeper in the world twice a season. In what games? Against Arsenal. Then the very next week concedes 4. Like, what's the point? Anyway, it happens. But I guess now, Leicester, Leeds, Everton and Forest, of those 4, which 2 are we condemning to the Championship? Leicester on 30 points, Leeds on 31 points, Everton on 32 points, and Nottingham Forest on 34 points. Craig, who are you condemning? Which 2 is going to go down?
Leicester, Everton.
Mark, who you got?
Leeds and Leicester, although I really hope Leicester can beat Newcastle.
Yeah, I want Forest to stay up. It's just weird. Everton, you just never know with them. I feel like they might have something in the tank. They might. But if they don't, I'm going to keep it as it is right now. So we're going to lose Leicester and Leeds, unfortunately. It is what it is. Can't save them all. A final thing we'll say as we close, because, you know, silly season is almost upon us. And obviously we've seen crazy players linked to different teams. Mason Mount to Arsenal. Many Arsenal fans are like, we don't really want him. Talk of Granit Xhaka leaving after what's been an incredible redemption arc for him. From being a player who Arsene Wenger said was a box-to-box player before he signed him. Then when he signed him, he could be like our version of Xabi Alonso. That was the kind of sentiment that we got from him. From getting a red card in his first 10 games to looking like a guy who we just couldn't depend upon, to being a hothead, to being the captain, to throwing that away, literally, to winning back our hearts and affection. Some fans never lost love for him, but his story might be over, which is ironic because Granit Xhaka, as long as he's been at Arsenal, we have never made Champions League. The only season we were in Champions League when he was at Arsenal was his first season because he qualified the year before. And I just find it ironic that in the year we've made Champions League, he's potentially going to leave.
Good.
Just have to leave it there.
Good.
But on that note, which 3 players, Liverpool players, Craig, would you take at Arsenal?
Now, currently.
Yeah, and why?
Trent for his delivery. The goalkeeper Alisson because he's consistent.
Okay.
Rarely makes mistakes.
Okay.
And striker. Who's a good striker? I like Cody Gakpo, you know.
Do you think those 3...
Or Salah.
I was gonna say, do you think those 3 players would be enough to win Arsenal the league next season if they were to come in?
100%. Alisson in goal will not concede a goal like that Ramsdale conceded against Brighton, 100%.
No comment.
He wouldn't power it out like he parried it out.
No comment.
Trent can play the system like what Southampton plays on the right hand side. So we get a lot of crosses in.
I have to be honest, Mark. I would be very happy for us to do an experiment next season and have a swap. You can have Ben White and we'll take Trent for the year, just alone. Not like I would love to see how he would fit in Arsenal's system.
He'll fit in perfectly, man.
I just want to see what he would do.
Him and Shevchenko on the wings, bombing forward. Okay, and Salah would score the goals. Salah will score more goals than Jesus.
Yeah,
Salah will score more goals than Jesus. So you win the league. If we had Salah on the team from January, we would have won the league. But the league would have been wrapped up by now, 100%.
I mean, Salah has got more goals than Jesus for what has been viewed as a quote unquote poor season. So yeah, that's a gimme.
Salah will score the goals.
Mark, which 3 players are you taking from Arsenal to strengthen Liverpool?
This may be quite surprising, actually, but I thought of it in terms of the nature of actually lining up our squad. So I'm taking Odegaard, I'm taking Zinchenko, and I'm taking Tomiyasu.
Zinchenko.
Tomiyasu.
Tomiyasu. Okay, I see the vision. I see the vision.
So what I'm doing is, I actually think this would be a massive improvement for us. Right? Is you wanted to see what it would look like with Trent on the right hand side and Zinchenko on the left hand side for you. I'm the same, but just in midfield. So we'd have Trent and Zinchenko both in midfield, with Odegaard as more of our forward midfielder. And then we'd have Tomiyasu at fullback just because he's solid, simple, doesn't make any mistakes. And I actually think under Jurgen Klopp would be a very, very good player because he's efficient, he likes to work hard. He's that type of, humble, fits the squad type player quite well. And I took him over White because I don't really think Ben White can play football that much, personally. He talks about not liking football, and that's very clear to see in the way he plays football. So for me, he's not a he's not a £50 million centre back, but he's a centre back, and you've converted him into a fullback, and fair play, he's doing okay, in what has been a good system. But as Craig pointed out, and it's part of the reason why I wouldn't want him anywhere near my team, is get a good winger going at him directly and it's game over. We know that's the case for Trent, right? You don't want to expose him at the fullback on his own with Leroy Sané running at him because he'll kill him, right? End of, right? So I want a fullback. I don't need them to be a 10. A 7's fine, who can defend, who works hard, and who knows how to be a fullback. And from Arsenal's perspective, I think Tomiyasu is the best fullback, at least right back for that. And then I would just love to see Trent and Zinchenko in the middle of the park, moving the play around, with Odegaard doing so more advanced. It's a very creative midfield, but I think that'd be quite interesting personally.
That's an interesting move. I mean, I'm taking Trent. That's my first choice pick. I'm gonna go for Nunez through the middle. I felt that could just be very interesting having those two together. And then the last piece of the puzzle, I'm taking. I know he's fallen off a bloody cliff this season, but there might still be something serviceable there for our midfield. There might be. It depends. Obviously, I have to go by the squad right now. I don't know what's going to happen in the summer. I don't know what's going to happen with incomings and outgoings, but I'd probably take Fabinho. And I would play Trent as an inverted right back with Zinchenko at the other side, and then just total football. And then when we lose the ball, Fabinho can just drop into centre back and 3 at the back. So that would work. 3 at the back, in possession, and just have fun with it. So that's what I'd go for. It's been an interesting season. I think ultimately what we've learned this year is, one, how good of a coach Arteta is, but in that very same token, he needs, and it's been an issue with him since his first season, because in his first season he understood the need to be pragmatic. When the FA Cup was available for us to win, he switched his system and we played counter-attacking football. We knew he wanted to play this more passing, progressive football. We didn't have the players for it. So we played counter-attacking football. We played 5 at the back. We packed out the defence. And what was our tactic? Get the ball, crossfield ball to Aubameyang. Aubameyang isolates defender 1v1, cut inside and shoot. That was our goals tactic. That was goal tactic number 1. Goal tactic number 2 was an upgrade on Emirates cutback football. That was our game, and it worked. Pepe was effective. Aubameyang was effective. He worked. Season 2, he started to get his players in, started to change it, tried to play more expansive football. And it works to an extent, but when you don't trust your wider squad, and you didn't think about Pepe, he could have played a part this season. He could, and he probably should be at the club. He should be the one challenging Saka for minutes. Nelson should have started a lot more games. There's even been games this year when we played Nottingham Forest early in the season. Nketiah should have started. Why wait until Jesus gets injured and you bring him in? These are the things that he needs to learn for next season. You can't just have your 13 players that you trust 100% and the rest of them is like, okay. Saliba's injured. Okay, I'll bring in Rob Holding. I don't like him, but I'll bring him in. Kivior's right there, bruv. Why not use him? You know? Ramsdale's out of form. Matt Turner's playing well in the cups. You don't give him a game in the league. How does that make sense?
You could have put Tierney could have played centre back as well. Tierney played centre back for Scotland.
Yeah, you could have tried that. There's lots of things you could have done.
And Gabriel at the back, or you play Fred at the back.
There's things we could have done. I think that's the thing I want to see from him next year is one, better squad utilisation. It's been one of my main complaints of him is that he just doesn't use the squad enough. I don't mind having plan A, trust plan A, but when plan A is not working, have plan B and switch to it fast, and have plan C and switch to it fast. And ultimately make all the players feel like they're a part of something. Because you can't bring on Smith Rowe in the last few games saying, save us. But when we're winning comfortably, he doesn't come off the bench. It doesn't work. You can't do that. You cannot expect players to just perform like that. It doesn't work. Especially a player that's been there so many years. So I want to see more pragmatism. I want to see more flexibility. I want to see the evolution of Arteta. You've suffered. And I really hope the pain of us missing out on the league hurts. Deeply hurts this summer. Like, I don't carry it into next season, but I want you from the end of May, June, and the start of July to feel that pain so that you're like, okay, Edu, Kroenkes, this is what I need. And the players who you can't trust and don't want, get rid of them. But you as a coach, you need to create space for those Mavericks and let them have a chance to thrive at this club because, again, I think Pepe could have done something this season. I think Nketiah could have done more if he was given more games to have more rhythm. Smith Rowe could have done more if he had a bit more rhythm. There's just so much more. And then if we'd rotated more, you wouldn't have had Partey fall off a cliff in fitness and form. And lastly, if you don't trust Rob Holding, when offers come in for him, sell him. So I don't expect to see Rob Holding next season at Arsenal. If he's still here at Arsenal next season, boy. September the first podcast in September, if Rob Holding's still an Arsenal player, hey. That's going to be fiery. That's all I have to say on that note. But thanks, everyone, for listening in. It's been quite fun. We're going to see what happens in Champions League if Man City get the result they need to reach the final against Real Madrid. Whether it will be the start of their 4-game collapse. Wishful thinking, but sometimes in life you've got to have a little bit of faith. A little bit of hope goes a long way. See you all next time. Peace out.
Peace.
Peace.